The morning of December 17, 1944, was cold and still outside Iwela, Belgium. A jeep rolled to a stop at a checkpoint where the mist hung heavy over the frozen road. The military policeman stepped forward, his breath visible in the icy air. Inside the jeep, 3 men sat dressed in American uniforms. Their patches, weapons, even their accents, all looked right. But something in their eyes made Sergeant William Creel pause. He'd been warned about a nightmare possibility, something that defied every rule of honor in warfare. German soldiers disguised as Americans, slipping behind Allied lines, sowing chaos from within. He asked for the password. The men hesitated. Their English cracked like brittle glass. Then Creel saw it. Their weapons weren't American at all. They carried British Sten guns, weapons no American patrol would have. Within minutes, the 3 men were under arrest. Beneath their olive-drab jackets were German field-gray uniforms. Their names were Unteroffizier Manfred Perus, Oberfähnrich Günther Billing, and Gefreiter Wilhelm Schmidt, now the most infamous prisoners of the Battle of the Bulge. Their capture would set off a wave of paranoia across the Allied lines, unlike anything seen before. Every soldier would become both suspect and interrogator. Every checkpoint would turn into a pop quiz on what it truly meant to be American. The story had begun months earlier on October 22, 1944, deep inside Hitler's headquarters in Rastenburg, East Prussia. The Führer summoned SS Commando Otto Skorzeny, a man whose reputation already bordered on legend. Skorzeny had led the daring glider assault that rescued Mussolini from his mountain prison and had masterminded the abduction of the Hungarian regent's son to keep Hungary in the war. But this new mission would be his boldest yet. Hitler laid out his plan. A massive counterattack through the Ardennes, a strike so fierce it would split the Allied armies and reclaim the momentum lost in France. The Germans needed speed and deception. To reach the Meuse River bridges before the Allies could blow them, Skorzeny's men would wear American and British uniforms, infiltrating behind enemy lines to spread confusion and sabotage communications. Even Skorzeny hesitated. He knew the rules. Under the Hague Convention, any soldier captured fighting in enemy uniform could be executed as a spy. But Hitler was undeterred. "You will change before you fight," he insisted. "It is not dishonor. It is war." Within days, Skorzeny began assembling his force, Panzer Brigade 150. He requested more than 3,000 men fluent in English. The result was laughable. Of the 2,500 who finally arrived, only 10 spoke fluent English. A handful could manage small talk. The rest knew only enough to say yes, no, and sorry. Those with the weakest English were told, if caught, to clutch their stomachs and pretend to have diarrhea. Their equipment situation was no better. Skorzeny asked for Shermans and jeeps to blend in with Allied forces. What he received were German Panthers painted olive drab with crude white stars, convincing only in the dark and from a distance. Authentic American uniforms were so scarce that only his small commando teams received them. Some uniforms were blood-stained, others mismatched. Yet, these men were determined to play their parts. The commandos studied everything: American slang, military ranks, and even how to chew gum or slouch like American GIs. They watched Hollywood movies, memorized baseball teams, state capitals, and the names of movie stars. They practiced walking and talking like the enemy they were about to imitate. By mid-December, the operation, codenamed Grief, meaning Griffin, was ready. Skorzeny's disguised units would infiltrate behind the German spearhead and capture key bridges before they could be destroyed. At dawn on December the 16th, the Ardennes erupted. Over 200,000 German troops poured through the fog-covered forests. The initial shock was devastating. American lines crumbled. Chaos reigned. Through that confusion, Skorzeny's disguised commandos slipped behind the front, driving captured jeeps, waving American flags and blending into the mayhem. For a brief moment, the plan worked. One team redirected an entire convoy down the wrong road. Others spread rumors of breakthroughs that didn't exist. Road signs were flipped, telephone wires cut, bridges blown. But by December 17th, the offensive had begun to stall. Fierce American resistance at Elsenborn Ridge and St. Vith slowed the German advance. Without the rapid progress of the main force, Skorzeny's men were left stranded deep in enemy territory. Then came the checkpoint outside Iwela, the one that changed everything. The three captured infiltrators confessed under interrogation, and their stories spread like wildfire. Rumors followed that German spies were everywhere, even inside Allied headquarters. One prisoner claimed, falsely, that the ultimate target was General Eisenhower himself. Panic gripped the Allied rear. Eisenhower was locked inside his headquarters at Versailles, surrounded by armed guards. The supreme commander of the Allied forces, trapped not by enemies, but by his own men's fear. Checkpoints multiplied overnight. Soldiers questioned every face, every accent. But what questions could expose an enemy disguised as an ally? The answers came from culture. MPs began asking trivia. What's the capital of Illinois? Who won the World Series in 1940? Who is Mickey Mouse's girlfriend? Soldiers who hesitated, stammered, or gave the wrong answer were detained, sometimes at gunpoint. The results were absurd and deadly serious. General Omar Bradley was held because an MP didn't believe Springfield was the capital of Illinois. British officers were arrested for not knowing baseball teams. Convoys stalled for hours as MPs grilled drivers about Hollywood stars. Some soldiers, offended by the questioning, answered sarcastically and found themselves under arrest. What had begun as an infiltration operation now paralyzed an army. Roads clogged. Reinforcements delayed. Fear replaced trust. And still, the Germans failed to achieve their objectives. Bridges remained intact. The element of surprise faded. The infiltrators were hunted down one by one. Those captured faced swift trials under international law. Wearing enemy uniforms during wartime was a capital offense. On December 21, 1944, the first trial was held. Perus, Billing, and Schmidt, the men caught at that checkpoint, were found guilty and sentenced to death. 2 days before Christmas, they were blindfolded and shot by firing squad. 13 more would follow before year's end. By then, Operation Grief was effectively over. Skorzeny's brigade, stripped of its disguise, fought as a conventional unit. He himself was wounded by artillery, but survived the war, surrendering in May 1945. When tried in 1947, Skorzeny faced the same charges that had condemned his men. But a surprise witness, a British commando, testified that the Allies had used similar deception tactics. The court ruled that wearing enemy uniforms for infiltration, not combat, did not violate the laws of war. Skorzeny was acquitted. His men, already dead, could not appeal their sentences. Operation Greif had failed to capture a single bridge or meaningfully change the course of the Battle of the Bulge. Yet it achieved something far more insidious. It shattered trust. It made every soldier question the face beside him. As Churchill would later say, the Battle of the Bulge was, undoubtedly, the greatest American battle of the war. But behind that victory lay days of chaos born from a single idea, that deception could rewrite the rules of war. The paranoia created by Skorzeny's infiltrators became legend. The baseball questions, the movie trivia, the impromptu identity tests, they became folklore, a reminder that cultural knowledge could be more powerful than camouflage. Because what made a soldier American wasn't just his uniform or his accent. It was the rhythm of speech, the small shared memories of baseball games, radio shows, movie stars, and slang that no German training could ever reproduce. Operation Greif's legacy endures not for its success, but for its lesson: deception can confuse armies, But it cannot win wars. Cultural fluency, identity, and trust. Those are not forged in classrooms or mimicry. They are lived, absorbed, and shared. And on that frozen road in Belgium, when Sergeant William Creel demanded a password and heard hesitation instead of certainty, history turned. The deception ended, and the truth, like the dawn that morning, began to break through the fog.